3 years after Owen marked me, an Omega with a 100% pheromone match to him showed up out of nowhere. His name was Charles, a scholarship student Owen and I had decided to sponsor together. A sick mom, a gambling, addicted dad. He was a tragic but resilient kid, the kind you couldn't help but feel sorry for. During our anniversary party, Charles had too much to drink, and his pheromones started leaking by accident. Owen, who always had ironclad self-control, got red-eyed in that sweet scent of gardenias. He let go of my hand without a second thought. "Eric, I think I'm losing my mind." That was the first time I'd ever seen him so completely overwhelmed by someone. I skipped town that night and ghosted everyone. But Owen searched for me like a madman. "Your pheromone compatibility is 0. The doctor slid the report across the desk toward us, explaining awkwardly, "This situation is admittedly quite rare, but don't give up. If you both focus on your health, there's still a chance you can have a child." "I understand," I said, nodding calmly. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Owen's profile. He was silent, his face grim, and the air around him felt heavy. Maybe his alpha pride was stung by the idea of not having an heir, but I didn't care. Our marriage was one of convenience, with no emotional foundation to begin with. We both had our own careers and were usually swamped with work. We rarely even slept in the same bed. The only time he was guaranteed to be with me was during my 3-day heat each month. My snarky friend even joked we were a 3-day couple. After 3 years of marriage with no children, Owen's family was getting anxious and constantly pressuring us. So Owen and I had to start trying to conceive. Today's hospital visit for the pheromone compatibility test was part of that process. The compatibility rate between an alpha and an omega determines the likelihood of conception. The higher the match, the higher the chances. Even during my heat, Owen and I only ever had sex once, a perfunctory act. I knew our compatibility wouldn't be high, but I never imagined it would be 0. It was definitely awkward. After we left the doctor's office, Owen snatched the report from my hand, crumpled it into a ball, and threw it in the trash. "What are you so angry about?" I found his reaction amusing. "You were forced to marry me in the first place. Isn't this the perfect excuse to finally get a divorce?" Divorce? The word seemed to strike a nerve. He whipped his head around, his eyes flashing dangerously as he grabbed my wrist, his grip tight. "Owen, let go." Couldn't break free. I had no choice but to let him drag me all the way to the parking garage. He roughly shoved me into the back seat, slammed the door, and then took off his tie to bind my hands. My glasses had been knocked crooked during the struggle and were barely hanging on my nose. Owen's face was a blur. "Don't you care at all, Eric?" I couldn't make out his expression, but I felt like he was looking down on me. I frowned. "About what?" He gripped my chin. "That our compatibility is 0. You really don't care? Should I? You're just my husband in the legal sense of the word." I laughed, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Just a friendly reminder, Mr. Grant, what you're about to do is considered marital rape. I can sue you." Owen's voice turned icy. "Then go ahead. Call your lawyer, Alex. I'm handing you a golden opportunity to see Alex Stevens every single day. Shouldn't you be thanking me?" Before I could say another word, Owen ripped off my glasses and sealed my lips with his. My glasses were broken, and my shirt was torn. At least Owen threw his suit jacket over me before he left. The faint scent of orchids still lingered in the car. I dry swallowed a suppressant pill. While waiting for my body to calm down, I called Alex. Alex is a childhood friend of mine. He's now a partner at a top-tier law firm and one of the most famous A-list litigators in the country. Hiring him for a divorce case seemed like overkill. "Are you sure?" Alex asked, incredulous. "Last I heard, you were planning to just stick it out with Owen." "I can't stick it out anymore." I rubbed the corner of my eye with my knuckle, staring at the dampness on my skin. After Owen's uncle passed away, we took over sponsoring the scholarship student he'd been supporting. And guess what? This kid just so happens to be a 100% pheromone match for Owen. Alex was silent for a moment on the other end of the line before asking, "You don't trust him?" A sarcastic smile touched my lips. "He doesn't trust me either." If Owen couldn't believe I could have a purely platonic friendship with another alpha, why should I believe he could control his own alpha instincts? I've already tested the waters. Owen doesn't want a divorce. Just draw up the papers. I hung up, straightened myself out, and put in a pair of backup contacts before getting out of the car. I was standing right in front of Owen's company headquarters. 20 minutes ago, just as he was pinning me down for a second round, his assistant called to say Charles was in trouble. Charles's gambling-addicted father had found out he was interning at Owen's company and had shown up to cause a scene, demanding money. Everyone at the company knew Charles was the student Owen and I were sponsoring, so they had to call Owen to handle it personally. When I walked in, Owen was sitting with Charles on a sofa in the first-floor waiting area, carefully examining a wound on his arm. Security guards were holding back a frantic-looking middle-aged man, and a bloody fruit knife lay on the floor nearby. "Mr. Grant, it's just a small cut. It's nothing. You're bleeding this much and you say it's nothing?" Owen spoke to the teary-eyed Charles as if no one else was in the room, gently disinfecting the wound himself. Owen, who was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, was probably waiting on someone hand and foot for the first time in his life. His assistant watched them helplessly, looking like he wanted to say something but couldn't. When he turned and saw me, he immediately rushed over. "Mr. Brooke, what do you think we should do about Charles's father?" "Call the police," I said without hesitation. "Gambling plus assault with a deadly weapon. That should be enough to put him away for a while." "Don't." Hearing my voice, Charles clutched his wound and hurried over, his eyes pleading. "Mr. Brooke, my mom's sick and needs someone to take care of her. I'm so busy with school and work, I just don't have the time. If my dad's not around..." I was in a foul mood and cut him off. "Are you telling me you expect a gambling addict who'd attack someone with a knife to be a good caretaker?" My harsh tone startled Charles, and his eyes grew even redder. "That's enough." Owen stepped forward, pulling Charles behind him to shield him. "Charles's family situation is complicated. He's had it rough, so maybe you could soften your tone a bit, Eric." My gaze was fixed on the hand he had on Charles's arm, and Owen's voice trailed off. As his last word faded, he finally let go, awkwardly avoiding my eyes. "They say an alpha and omega with a 100% pheromone match are instinctively drawn to each other. I never used to believe it, but now I did. Even though Owen and I only had a marriage of convenience, he had always sided with me in public, pretending we were the perfect, happy couple. Now he wasn't even bothering to act. Charles's cut was deep, so Owen had his assistant take him to the hospital. The police took his father away. Owen pulled me aside and hissed, "Didn't I tell you to wait in the car? You didn't even clean up and you just came waltzing in. You still reek of my scent. Do you have any idea how many alphas are in this company? Can't you have a little self-awareness as an omega?" I gave a flat O, pushed his hand away, and turned to leave. Owen froze for a second, then hurried after me. "Eric, you're not going to fight with me?" His voice was rushed, tinged with a hint of confusion. In 3 years of marriage, Owen and I had fought a lot. The source of our conflict was simple. He refused to believe that there was nothing going on between Alex and me. My family's corporation works with Alex's law firm, and he also serves as our general counsel, so we're in frequent contact. Because of this, Owen saw Alex as a threat and believed I was being reckless for an omega. I'd already explained myself a dozen times and was tired of having the same old argument. "I have to go to my parents' house. I don't have time for this." I got into the driver's seat, shut the door on him, and turned the key. I went back to my family's estate to see my parents. They were also shocked to hear that Owen's and my compatibility was 0, and they just stared at each other after I told them the whole story. Ours was a marriage of convenience meant to bind our two families. Not having children wasn't an option, at least Owen's family was adamant that I had to produce an heir. An extremely low chance of pregnancy meant I would have to endure a lot of hardship in the future. My mother's eyes welled up with tears as she hugged me. "Okay, if you want a divorce, then get one. I won't pressure you anymore." I looked at my father. He thought for a moment, then nodded. "Your mother and I only agreed to the marriage because we thought Owen was a decent young man. If you're not happy with him, then let it go." We'll support whatever you decide. The international division needs a new head, and your older brother is already stretched too thin. You should take the position. You have the skills for it. I stayed for dinner and discussed my future plans with my parents. It was getting late by the time I returned to our villa. When I walked in, I was stunned to see the living room decorated with all sorts of flowers and balloons. Owen, his shirt sleeves rolled up, was on a stepladder hanging balloons with the house staff. I asked, "Is there a special occasion coming up?" Owen turned, saw me, and for the first time in a long while, his eyes curved into a genuine smile. "It's our wedding anniversary in 3 days. Did you forget? 3 days?" Now that he mentioned it, I think the housekeeper had said something about it. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out to check the message. My assistant had already booked my flight to New York. It was for the night of our anniversary, at 11 p.m. Owen hopped down from the stepladder. "I've already invited some friends over for a party. The cake's been ordered, too. See if there's anyone you want to invite. You can even ask Alex to come if you want. I don't mind." I eyed him suspiciously. Did he hit his head? Why was he being so magnanimous all of a sudden? Was this for real or was it just another act? As he approached, I quickly turned off my phone screen so he couldn't see it. I'll see," I said non-committally. Owen rolled down his sleeves and pulled me over to the sofa. Only then did I notice a pile of bottles and jars on the coffee table. I went back to the hospital later and got some fertility supplements from the doctor. Some for me, some for you. He showed them to me one by one. I asked the doctor, even with zero compatibility, an omega can still get pregnant. There have been cases before. I've already had my secretary rearrange my schedule. From now on, I'll try to come home early every night to be with you. You don't have to do that. I poured cold water on his enthusiasm without a second thought. Work comes first. It's not necessary. I didn't take any of the medicine. Instead, I stood up and went to my room. Owen and I were both busy, and our schedules didn't line up, so we usually slept in separate rooms. I only went to his room during my heat. But when I opened the door, my room was empty. All of my personal belongings were gone. I turned around and looked down at Owen, who was standing at the bottom of the stairs. "Where are my things?" Owen rubbed his nose, looking guilty. "I had them moved to my room. It's not very convenient for baby making if we're sleeping separately. Is it?" I could barely contain my irritation. Owen should know I hate it when people touch my things without permission, but he did it anyway. He'd also brought home a pile of who knows what kind of medicine, and he was even trying to suck up to me. Was having a child that important to him? If he was so disappointed that I couldn't get pregnant, he could just find another omega. As my eyes swept over Owen's face, a powerful wave of nausea washed over me. Ugh! I clamped a hand over my mouth and ran to the bathroom, throwing up almost everything I'd eaten for dinner. Owen seemed hurt. He sat in the living room with his back to the second-floor hallway, letting me and the staff move my things back into my room without a word. I didn't take the medicine, I didn't sleep with him, and I barely spoke to him. And Owen didn't try to bother me. The 3 days passed quickly. A lot of people came to the anniversary party, all of Owen's friends and some of his company's top executives. As for me, I hadn't invited anyone. Owen loved to play the role of the doting husband in front of others. Even though I was cold, he took my hand and pulled me along to chat and laugh with his friends. I did my best to play along. Ever since that day I threw up, I'd been feeling off, chest tightness one moment, a headache the next. I wondered if it was because I was working too hard getting ready to take over the international division. TSK. Owen, showing off your happy marriage. Huh? Is Eric's hand that nice to hold? Can't let go for even a second? One of his friends teased, nudging him with his elbow. Get lost, Owen grumbled, shooing him away. Once he was gone, I whispered, I'm going outside for some air. I tried to pull my hand away, but he only held on tighter. I was getting annoyed. Owen, I don't feel well, I explained, trying to keep my frustration in check. Stop making excuses, Eric. Owen squeezed my hand, his voice cold. I'm just holding your hand. Do you have to be so disgusted by it? He was still mad about me throwing up in front of him 3 days ago. When I didn't say anything, he continued on his own. I know you hate me. I know you don't want to have my child. You look down on my parents and can't be bothered with my friends. You're so proud, aren't you? You're the younger son of the Brooke family, a man even titans of industry have to respect, with countless alphas chasing after you. But we're married, for God's sake. Can you please stop fighting me on everything? I noticed the corners of his eyes were red and realized he was losing control. He couldn't hold his liquor but never seemed to know his limits. He'd had way too much to drink. I didn't look down on him. He was the one who refused to trust me. He didn't believe I could ever love him. And that report with compatibility 0 written on it seemed to have only convinced him further that we were two people who should have never been together. He had his grievances, but I had my own frustrations. I was in no mood to comfort him. Eric, Owen put his hands on my shoulders, about to say something else, but was cut off by a cheerful voice from nearby. Mr. Brooke. Charles came jogging toward us, holding a small, palm-sized gift box.
Ifroza, thinking ide mishiart.
Was Charles calling for me? As he got closer, he saw Owen's flushed, drunken face and jumped. Mr. Grant, I'm fine, Owen said, waving a hand. You needed to talk to him? Charles nodded, his bright, almond-shaped eyes fixed on me. Mr. Brooke, thank you for paying for my mom's surgery and for helping me find a lawyer. I wanted to thank you, but I was worried you wouldn't like anything I could afford, so I made this bracelet myself. He held out the gift box, his expression hopeful. In his eyes, I saw my own impassive face. It was this expression that always got me misunderstood. I forced a stiff smile. It was nothing. His mother's surgery costs were pocket change for me, and finding her a lawyer to get away from her deadbeat husband was no trouble at all. As his sponsor and as a fellow Omega, I was just trying to help him get out of a tough spot. Owen would look after his future. When Charles saw I was willing to accept his gift, his doe-like eyes lit up, and his voice became cheerful. Then, Mr. Brooke, can I put it on for you? I'm not used to being touched, so I hesitated. But seeing how eager he was, I didn't want to disappoint him. Just as I was about to nod, Owen snatched the gift from Charles's hand. I'll hold on to this for him. Thank you. Owen patted Charles's head, his voice softening. Go get something to eat. You're always scrimping and saving. Look how thin you are. The light in Charles's eyes instantly dimmed. He glanced at me, then at Owen, hesitated for a moment and finally mumbled, Thank you for your concern, Mr. Grant, before turning and walking away. You didn't have to do that, I said, annoyed. I wasn't going to refuse him. Was Owen that worried I'd hurt Charles's feelings by rejecting him? He's just a kid. I'm not going to hold a grudge against him. Owen blinked, then muttered, Is that so? Then you're a very forgiving person. What was that supposed to mean? I was fed up and tried to shake him off, but I couldn't. Owen followed me like a shadow, sticking to me wherever I went. I couldn't win, so I just let him. As the party wound down, guests started to leave, and the villa grew quiet again. Charles offered to stay and help the staff clean up, but he'd had a little to drink and was unsteady on his feet. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I didn't have to look to know it was a text from Alex. I'd asked him to pick me up at 9 to go to the airport. It was time, but Owen still wouldn't let me go. He was drunk, his forehead resting on my shoulder, his hand clamped tightly around mine. So sweet, Owen murmured drowsily. Eric, is that your scent? An alpha's sense of smell is incredibly sharp. Now that he mentioned it, I noticed a faint, sweet fragrance spreading through the house. The staff were all betas, and the pheromones weren't leaking from me, so it could only be. I looked over at Charles. He had fallen asleep at the dining table at some point, the tips of his ears bright red. Charles, wake up. I called out a few times, but Charles didn't stir. I immediately told a staff member to get some suppressants. But in that short time, the warmth that had been enveloping my hand vanished. Owen, who had clung to me all night, had finally let me go. The scent of gardenias from Charles grew stronger. My alpha, drawn in by that sweet fragrance, turned his back on me and walked toward him, step by step. Eric, I don't know what's happening. I think I'm going crazy. I managed to say his name, but in the end, I said nothing more. Stimulated by Charles's pheromones, Owen's own were starting to leak. His alpha instincts were in complete control now. He couldn't hear me anyway. My phone vibrated again. Alex was waiting. I didn't hesitate any longer. I turned and walked out of the villa. Alex's car sped through the night. I efficiently popped out my SIM card and tossed it out the window. Your assistant asked me to pass along a message. Your mark removal surgery has been scheduled, but you'll need a full physical beforehand, Alex said. He was getting worried when you didn't reply tonight. Did something happen? Charles's pheromone leak had been so severe that the scent had even clung to me. Alex must have smelled it. Just an accident that had nothing to do with me, I answered vaguely. An hour later, Alex's phone started buzzing nonstop. He glanced at the caller ID inside. Owen's calling me. It's fine, you can answer it, I said, slowly polishing the lenses of my glasses. You'll have to deal with him sooner or later anyway. Alex was handling my divorce. He answered the call and put it on speaker. Alex Stevens, what the hell is this lawyer's letter about? Where did you take Eric? Owen's frantic, slightly distorted voice came through the speaker. The normally mild-mannered Alex's tone turned cold. It means my client, Mr. Brooke, wants to divorce you. And I didn't take him anywhere. I'm just doing a friend a favor and playing chauffeur. Furthermore, Mr. Brooke will not be appearing in court. As his legal counsel, I will be handling everything until the very end. Owen cut him off impatiently. Cut the crap, Alex. You think I don't know how you feel about Eric? You're so eager to help him with this lawsuit because you're just waiting for me to divorce him so you can swoop in. Aren't you, Mr. Star Attorney? Alex scoffed. Don't judge me by your own low standards. Owen laughed coldly. All right, enough nonsense. Is Eric there with you? Put him on the PH. Before Owen could finish, Alex hung up. I gave him a grateful look. Alex's voice was gentle. Don't worry, I'll handle him. For some reason, the jet lag was hitting me especially hard this time. I slept after arriving in New York, but when I woke up, my head was still foggy, and I felt the urge to gag. But today was my first day as president of the International Division, and the meetings had been scheduled in advance. I forced myself to go, pushing through the discomfort. In the car, my assistant, Ryan, asked worriedly, Mr. Brooke, you don't look well. Maybe we should postpone the meeting? In the rearview mirror, I saw my own pale face. No, I said firmly, the meeting will proceed as scheduled. Society has so many prejudices against omegas. I refuse to be defeated by those voices, and I refuse to lose to my alpha older brother. I know I push myself too hard, but it's how I survive. The marathon meeting lasted 4 hours. When it finally ended, the other executives filed out one by one. I closed my laptop, ready to leave for my physical at the hospital. The moment I stepped out of the conference room, the tension that had been wound tight in my head finally snapped. I let out a soft sigh, and then my vision went black. Mr. Brooke. Before I lost consciousness, the last thing I heard was Ryan's panicked, cracking voice. I don't know how long I slept, but I finally broke free from the heavy darkness. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic. Mr. Brooke. Ryan's excited voice rang in my ear. You're finally awake. He gripped my cold hand. I turned my head slightly to glance at him, and he quickly let go. I'm sorry. Ryan is a beta. He's been with me since I first started getting involved in the family business, which is almost 5 years now. I'd had a vague sense of his feelings for me before, but to me he was at most a familiar subordinate. My voice was hoarse. How long was I out? A full day and night, Ryan said. I frowned. What about the pre-op physical? And the surgery? Since Owen and I weren't divorced yet, I technically couldn't get the mark removal surgery. I had pulled a lot of strings after deciding to move abroad to get an appointment at a private hospital. If I missed this chance, I'd have to wait even longer. That meant I'd have to rely on suppressants to get through my heat next week, and a large dose would be hard on my body. Ryan stammered, the surgery, it might not be possible. Seeing his evasive look, I realized something was seriously wrong. What do you mean, not possible? Why? Ryan opened his mouth but couldn't seem to get the words out. Finally, he squeezed out, "I'll go get the doctor to explain it to you." Then he bolted out of the room. While I waited for the doctor, I found my phone on the nightstand and saw a flood of messages from my mom, sent while I was unconscious. "Eric, it's okay. Mom is coming to be with you right now. If you're feeling sick, please don't push yourself. Okay? Get some rest." What was going on? Did I have a terminal illness? I sent a message back to let her know I was okay. She replied almost instantly, "Eric, what are you going to do about the baby?" Baby? I stared at the screen, my brain, which had been dormant for a day, struggling to process it. Just then, the doctor came in and handed me a lab report. "Mr. Brooke, omegas cannot undergo mark removal surgery during pregnancy. It would be life-threatening. I'm afraid your surgery will have to be postponed or canceled. 13 weeks pregnant." The report was in black and white, perfectly clear. Through my hospital gown, I touched my stomach. My fingers wouldn't stop trembling. It was still flat. And now they were telling me I was pregnant? I had decided to divorce Owen, only to find out at this exact moment that I was carrying his child. I remember the night 13 weeks ago perfectly. I'd been at the office all day, so busy I'd forgotten it was my birthday. Owen had called me over and over, but I missed every call. He got anxious and showed up at the office in the evening, bursting into a meeting and carrying me out in front of everyone. He carried me bridal style, which was mortifying in front of my subordinates. Owen put me in the car and, ignoring my protests, kissed me again and again. I was so angry I kicked him and told him to stop acting crazy. He looked like he was about to cry, whether from being hurt or from the kick. I couldn't tell. His eyes were red. "Eric, is it so hard to pick up my call once in a while? I thought you'd run off." I glanced at him. If I was gonna run, I would have done it a long time ago. Why would I wait until now? Owen wrapped his arms around my waist, his eyes fixed on me. "Well, I'm telling you right now, no matter where you run, I will find you. Because you are my omega, and you will only ever be my omega." At the time, I thought he was insane, a total lunatic. But I let him have his way. We spent the night at a hotel, and for the first time, it wasn't perfunctory. As dawn approached, Owen was biting my scent gland, his solid chest pressed against my back. His heart was pounding, beat after beat, fast and strong. In a hazy state of mind, I thought I felt something. Something Owen had never said out loud. Buzz, buzz. Alex's call snapped me back to the present. I answered. "Eric, Owen is refusing to show up in court, and he hasn't hired a lawyer. He's not answering his phone, he's not at his office, and I can't get in touch with him. Has he found you?" My heart jumped. I shot a look toward the door of my hospital room. The door was still shut. The room was empty, not a soul in sight. I let out a breath, my tense shoulders relaxing. "No. Good," Alex said. "If anything happens on your end, you can call me anytime." Okay. Owen was missing, and I didn't know why. Charles's pheromones had leaked so badly at the party. It was possible he'd gone into an early heat. Maybe Owen was with him right now, too busy to deal with anything else. Couldn't be that something had happened to him. If it had, his family would have surely made some noise. There was nothing to worry about, and the pregnancy was just a minor complication. It would be resolved soon. Nothing would go wrong. I hung up with Alex and called the doctor back in. The doctor brought a document with her. "Mr. Brooke, have you made your decision?" I nodded. Yes. My pheromone compatibility with Owen was 0. This child was a miracle. It was possible this would be the only child we would ever have. I knew all of this, but I didn't want it to affect the rest of my life. I looked up at the doctor. "I've made up my mind. I'm terminating the pregnancy. I wanted to get the abortion and the mark removal surgery over with as soon as possible, but it wasn't that simple." The doctor said I was too exhausted and weak and needed to rest for a few days before any procedure. She left a consent form and a pen on my nightstand and left. I picked up the pen, but as I went to sign, Owen's voice echoed in my head for some reason. "No matter where you run, I will find you." My hand shook, and the sharp tip of the pen tore through the paper, leaving an ugly black ink blot. Frustrated, I put the form back on the nightstand. My morning sickness was severe, but thankfully my mom arrived to be with me. She felt incredibly guilty for agreeing to my marriage with Owen and took care of me around the clock. I wanted to talk with her more, but the pregnancy-induced sleepiness was hard to fight. I could sleep 12 hours a day and still not feel rested. On my third day in the hospital, I had a nightmare about Owen and woke up in a panic. As I tried to sit up for a drink of water, I found my right hand was pinned down. Couldn't move it. I thought my mom had fallen asleep by the bed, but when I turned my head, I saw a man slumped over beside me. He was holding my hand in his sleep. My heart pounded. I immediately yanked my hand free, grabbed my glasses from the nightstand, and switched on the bedside lamp. The intruder's features came into focus. It was Owen. How did he find me? And how did he get in? This was a VIP wing, a separate building with security downstairs. My mind was in chaos. Eric, startled by my movement, Owen woke up, mumbling my name sleepily. Only then did I get a good look at him. His black hair was a mess. A layer of stubble shadowed his chin. His eyes were bloodshot, and he was still wearing the same suit from the day I left, now torn in several places. He looked utterly wrecked. How did he get like this? Did he climb in through the window? I glanced at the half-open window, the curtains billowing in the night wind. He's insane. This was the 5th floor. A fall from here would be fatal. What are you doing here? Alex should have made it clear. I want a divorce. It's not up for negotiation. I lifted my chin, maintaining my usual commanding presence. Owen's dark eyes stared at me. Why? Because of Charles? I shook my head. Because of you. The rift between us had always been there. Charles's appearance just forced me to finally face it. Owen frowned, looking confused. I let out a small, derisive laugh. Are you wondering why I'm so insistent on a divorce when you and Charles didn't even do anything wrong? I'm simply returning the same mistrust you've always shown me. Do you get it now? A flash of panic crossed Owen's eyes. He opened his mouth, his defense weak. I don't mistrust you. I didn't want to argue with him anymore. I just wanted him gone. I said my piece. Leave now or I'll call security. Owen shook his head and knelt by the bed, grabbing my hand again. Eric, let me explain. I wasn't really suspicious of you. I was just so scared. A gust of wind blew in through the window, lifting the ruined consent form from the nightstand. The thin sheet of paper fluttered down and landed on Owen's chest, cutting him off. What's this? My stomach lurched. I lunged for it without thinking. Seeing my reaction, Owen grabbed my wrist, raising an eyebrow. What's this? What has you in such a panic? Don't tell me it's a Brooke family trade secret. He unfolded the paper with one hand. As he read the dense English text, his expression changed dramatically. Consent form for an abortion? Owen looked at me in disbelief, his dark brown eyes trembling. You're pregnant? Why didn't you tell me? He was gripping my wrist so tightly it hurt. I knew it. Once Owen found out I was pregnant, the divorce would become even more complicated. That's why I had everyone who knew keep it a secret. I lowered my eyes. I only found out after I left. Right? Owen's brow smoothed out. You've been working like crazy these past few months. You couldn't possibly have known you were pregnant. For Owen, the joy of having a child seemed to far outweigh the shock of seeing the consent form. He smiled, the happiness impossible to hide. Eric, you're so smart. How could you not even realize you were pregnant? No, I'm the idiot. We should have done a full physical the day we went for the compatibility test. Then we would have known sooner. Eric, this is amazing. We're having a baby. Owen was so overjoyed he was on the verge of tears. He leaned in to hug me, but I held up a hand to stop him. His face fell, and then he asked cautiously, "Can I touch it?" I hesitated for a moment, then nodded. I was going to terminate it anyway. I might as well give Owen a chance to say goodbye. Owen sat on the edge of the bed, pulled back the covers, unfastened the bottom button of my hospital gown, and lifted the hem. His warm palm rested on my lower abdomen, stroking it gently. I wonder if our baby will be a boy or a girl. Either way, it'll definitely be as beautiful as you. Owen murmured to himself, then leaned down to press his ear against my stomach. The fetus was only 3 months old. Of course, he couldn't hear anything. While he was distracted, I quietly picked up my phone and sent a text to Ryan. Send security to my room. Who are you texting? Owen's voice cut through the quiet room. I quickly turned off the screen. It's work. He didn't press the issue, just glanced down at my stomach again before tearing the consent form to pieces. The shredded paper fell like confetti. Tearing it up won't do any good, I said. That one was already ruined. I've already given the signed one to the doctor. Owen's eyes reddened. He grabbed my hand, pleading, Eric, don't get rid of it. This is our child. How can you decide its fate all by yourself? It's in my body, I said calmly. So I get the final say. Owen, why do you have to make this so difficult? Can't we just part amicably? We're adults. Can't we be civil about this? But Owen was stubborn. What do I need civility for? I just want you, and I want our child. Eric, I don't think our marriage is at a point where divorce is the only option. In these 3 years, have you really felt nothing for me at all? Do you really not care? Not one bit. I didn't answer. The security guards were fast. They were already on the 5th floor and rushing into the room, pinning Owen down. Sir, please don't disturb our guest's rest. Owen fought back, struggling violently and trying to lunge toward the bed, determined to finish what he was saying. If you really didn't care at all, why were you crying in the car that day? And why was the first thing you asked me about today, Charles? You're not as magnanimous as you think you are. You hate that Charles exists, and you hate that 0 on the test report. I remained silent, turning my face away from him. I didn't dare look at him, afraid that if I met his pained, furious eyes, the defenses I'd built up for so long would come crashing down. I didn't dare answer his questions, either, because he was right about everything. I had tried so hard not to cry in the car that day, but in the end, I did. Not because Owen had forced me, but because I realized we were well and truly over. In this marriage we had barely held together for 3 years. Neither of us was willing to give an inch. He was prickly and hard to get close to, and I had built my walls so high I wouldn't let anyone in. In the end, we both lost. I was tired. I wanted out. But why wouldn't he let me go? Owen had completely lost control, his voice cracking as he continued to hurl questions at me. The reason you filed for divorce was irreconcilable differences. But when have you ever even admitted you had feelings to begin with? My hand, hidden under the covers, gripped the bedsheet tightly. The head of security warned Owen, Sir, if you don't leave now, I will call the police. But Owen wasn't listening. I didn't want it to escalate to that point, so I spoke up to try and calm him down. You want to save our marriage? Fine. But you have to prove to me that you can overcome your alpha instincts. Otherwise, it's off the table. Alphas were heavily influenced by pheromones. Besides those in the police or military who had undergone anti-interference training, very few could resist their own instincts. Owen clearly couldn't. Otherwise, he wouldn't have acted so abnormally when Charles's pheromones leaked. I said it to make things difficult for him, to make him give up on his own. I never imagined that those words would cause everything to spiral completely out of control. Fine, you said it. With a sudden burst of strength, Owen broke free from the 2 guards and lunged toward the bed. I instinctively flinched back, but he wasn't coming for me. He was going for the pen the doctor had left on the nightstand. Eric, don't you dare go back on your word. With that, Owen swiftly uncapped the pen. He aimed the sharp nib at the side of his neck and then, without a moment's hesitation, he plunged it in. Bright red blood sprayed out, splattering across my glasses. My entire world turned crimson. The hospital room was dead silent. The security guards were frozen in shock. Owen collapsed to his knees, gasping for breath. In an instant, my blood ran cold. My fingertips trembled uncontrollably. I slammed the nurse call button, then scrambled clumsily toward him, pressing my hands against the wound on his neck, trying to stop the bleeding. Owen. There was so much I wanted to say, but I didn't know where to start. I choked back a sob, repeating his name over and over, my voice shaking so badly it didn't sound like my own. Are you crazy? Are you trying to kill yourself? Owen couldn't speak. He rested his chin on my shoulder and let out a soft laugh, which came out as a horrible, wheezing sound, like a broken accordion. The blood kept coming, a relentless flow that stained everything. The thick, metallic smell filled the room. With the last of his strength, Owen wrapped his arms around my waist and passed out. His limp body swayed and started to fall. I automatically reached out and held him. Don't die. I heard my own voice, pleading and thick with tears. Owen was rushed into surgery. Numbly, I returned to my room, went into the bathroom, and stared at myself in the mirror. My face and lips were deathly pale, and I was covered in blood. I looked nothing like the confident, commanding younger son of the Brooke family everyone knew. Things had gotten out of control. Or maybe, from the moment I fell in love with Owen, everything had been out of my control. And I had naively believed I could still manage everything with my usual cool composure, that I could walk away from this marriage without a scratch. If I hadn't given in to Owen on my birthday, I wouldn't have gotten pregnant and trapped myself in this mess. If I hadn't thought I knew him so well, hadn't said those words to him just now, Owen wouldn't have destroyed his own gland and be fighting for his life. Owen had called me arrogant, and he wasn't wrong. I stood under the shower, slowly washing away the dried blood, changed into clean clothes, and went back to sit on the bench outside the operating room to wait. I don't know how much time passed before Ryan showed up. He approached me cautiously, then dropped to his knees in front of me, sobbing. "It's all my fault, Mr. Brooke. I never thought things would turn out like this. The truth is, your compatibility with Mr. Grant was never zero. It was me. I was so jealous of him, so I swapped your pheromone sample with a voided one. I just wanted you to divorce him. I never thought Mr. Grant would be so extreme as to destroy his own gland. No wonder. No wonder I was pregnant. The obstacle Owen had been agonizing over had never existed in the first place. I had trusted the subordinate who'd been with me for years too much, and I'd forgotten that love can make people selfish. I'm tired," I said, closing my eyes, not wanting to look at him. "Submit your own resignation." After several hours of surgery, they managed to save Owen's life, but his scent gland was completely dead. He was no longer an alpha. That was his method for overcoming his instincts. Since he had actually done it, I would keep my end of the bargain. On the third day, Owen finally woke up. I had another bed brought into my VIP room, so he was right next to me. I told Alex to drop the lawsuit. "Really?" Those were the first words Owen heard upon waking. He tried to sit up excitedly but couldn't move because of the thick bandages around his neck. He couldn't even turn his head to look at me. He seemed to have forgotten the pain, asking me over and over, "We're not getting divorced? We're really not?" I sighed and managed a soft, "Emicham." His next question came immediately. "Eric, you've been in love with me for a while, haven't you?" I snapped my laptop shut, annoyed. "Owen, don't you think there are a lot of other things you should explain to me before you start asking questions like that?" "Oh," Owen said awkwardly. This was the first time we had ever been truly honest with each other. Staring at the ceiling, Owen poured his heart out. "Eric, I've liked you since the first time I saw you. I just didn't realize it back then, and I was so pissed that my parents had arranged my marriage that I resisted it. Ever since we got married, I've been terrified. You're loved by so many people, Eric. You're like the moon surrounded by stars. You have your childhood best friend who always has your back, your loyal assistant. Even an Omega like Charles is drawn to you. I was so scared that if I wasn't careful, I'd lose you." I turned my head in surprise. I really hadn't expected him to be jealous of an Omega. So that day, when he snatched the gift from Charles, it wasn't because he was afraid I'd hurt Charles's feelings by rejecting him. It was because he was jealous. I admit, I was too hard on Alex, but I couldn't help it. He's your childhood friend. Who else was I supposed to be jealous of? And that guy really is the worst. He had the nerve to whisk you away right under my nose. I'll never forgive him for that. As he talked, he got so worked up he slapped the bed, which pulled at the wound on his neck. He cried out in pain. I reminded him, "Be careful. You don't want to spray the room with blood again." Owen took a moment to recover before continuing. "About Charles, I'm sorry. I really didn't expect the pull of a 100% pheromone match to be that strong. If I'd known, I never would have taken him on. I could have just had a friend sponsor him instead. I almost lost control at the party that night. I had to slap myself to snap out of it. When I realized you were gone, I started looking for you right away. I gave Charles a suppressant and had someone take him back to his dorm. I told him not to come back to the company and found him another sponsor. I have nothing to do with him anymore, and we won't see each other again. And now I'm not affected by pheromones at all. Eric, I won't ever make you sad again. Can you trust me one more time? I let out a soft sigh. Okay. Owen breathed a sigh of relief, then circled back to his previous question. So, can you answer me now? Eric, are you in love with me? I lowered my eyes and said softly, if someone I didn't like was acting crazy and stabbing himself in the neck in front of me, do you really think I would have given in? Owen listened, then smiled. So convoluted, but that's definitely your style. Just as he finished speaking, a nurse opened the door and came in. Mr. Brooke, it's time. Owen immediately got tense. Time for what? Are you going to get the abortion? I shot him a look. I'm going for a prenatal checkup. You just stay put and don't move. In the end, Owen decided to accommodate my work schedule, and we settled down abroad together. Owen, who had always kept erratic hours, started working a 9-to-5 job and was home with me every night. We were no longer a 3-day couple. 7 months later, our child was born, an Omega boy. I was still replying to work messages right up until the minute I went into the delivery room, which terrified Owen. After the baby was born, he insisted I take a proper break to recover. So I stayed home for over half a year, watching our son grow from a wrinkly newborn into a baby who could crawl. Now he can finally say mama, even if it was just a random sound. Owen was even more excited than I was, lifting the baby high in the air. All right, go put him to bed, I said, looking at the two of them with a helpless smile. After putting the baby to sleep, Owen came back and sat down next to me, nudging me with his elbow. Honey, now it's our time. I knew what he meant, but I still had work to finish, so I gave him a perfunctory peck on the cheek. But Owen was persistent. He leaned over and pushed me down onto the sofa. The night is young. One kiss is hardly enough.